It's cleaning day! I'm gonna level with you. I enjoy clean things. Dust and bacteria are the enemy. They come from many places, which is why I think buying things is a risk. Who knows where that thing you bought has been previously? And games are no exception. Who knows what dirtiness it encountered before I got it? Like this? This could have been in someone's toilet for all I know. Well, I'm gonna take a stand against germs. You and all the games in my collection are going to be cleansed today!
One cleaning session later.
The dirt is a lot more stubborn than I thought.
Buying used things is more than a way of life, it's one of our top 10 rights. Sure, it might be unsanitary and you may risk getting hives because they didn't clean the damn thing, but it could be worth it if it could save you a couple of bucks. Go to your nearest thrift store, flea market, or garage sale. It's filled to the brim with used things. What's more, thanks to the magical tool known as the internet, used things get swapped around like crazy. You can get even stuff from other countries if you wanted to. There's a bunch of things you could buy used: clothes, electronics, music CDs, books, underwear, but video games are pretty much the most prominent types of used products out there, and it's not hard to see why. You get the game, you play it, you declare that you're done with the game at some point. That's usually how people play video games. The fate of that game at that point becomes one of two things. You put it in a shelf for a chance to play it again sometime in the future, or you sell it off to another person to get money for another game while giving another person the same experience, typically reduced than when you first bought it. Getting stuff at a used price is something that humans just can't pass up. That's true for everything ever, but video games are the most widely accepted in the realm of buying used things. You may get a good deal buying books used, but unless we're talking college textbooks, copies that are brand new are typically affordable to most people. Same thing with DVDs and music, especially in the digital space where streaming exists, assuming it's available for streaming at all. And that's not to mention those more questionable means of experiencing those media out there, if you're brave and smart enough. Video games don't exactly have that luxury. One new game is almost equal to 3 Blu-ray movies, and although those alternate means are always available, some people are real sticklers for having the authentic experience, physical copy included. Having the authentic experience is fine, but when it comes to physical copies of games, you need specific hardware to have the right to play these. People rely on used video games for a multitude of reasons, whether it's to save money, get the game that's no longer in print, or send a message to a game publisher that wronged them.
Yeah, that's right. I got this game used. I saved money and I stuck to that company who wanted me to pay full price. Therefore, I am better than everyone else.
Regardless of why you buy games used, these games are exactly what the name suggests: games used by other people. A game's travelogue begins after the copy is printed, shipped, and placed onto a store shelf. It's later bought by someone, and once the shrink wrap is removed, it starts its travelogue as a used game. They play it for some time, put it down, and if they're a non-collector, the game is then sold to someone else, who then takes the game through another cycle of being played and sold. And the cycle has the potential to repeat ad infinitum, but for every part of the game's eventual journey to your hands, there are some traces of their time with the previous owner if you can find it. So what's to expect once that used game falls into your hands? Well, the condition of that game falls into 3 levels. Let's start with level 1, the practically new games. These are used games that in the best case scenario, you might get a game that's very close, if not exactly the same as it was when it was bought brand new. These are the used games that people always strive for. Games of this condition are the ones that show that the previous owner gave a lot of love and care to their copies, to the point where it's indistinguishable compared to a new game. One look will leave you stumped as to when they bought the game. Could they have bought it at launch or recently? If it looks brand new with no imperfections, that's my dinner plate for tonight. Being like new also means that all the components of the game are there. What do I define as complete in the box? If the game came in a plastic case, the game requires a case it came in, the disc, the original cover art, right down to the paper it's printed on, and the manual, as well as the other inserts. Some games, usually launch editions, also come with a cardboard sleeve and some goodies for people to enjoy. Simply put, if your used game has everything that came in when it was bought brand new, it is considered complete. Of course, some games back then came in cardboard boxes that were later thrown away by naive children, so all you have is a cartridge. No matter what, if all the required components are present, that's what I consider complete. Of course, in most scenarios, if it's not perfect, it falls into level 2, the purple hearts. In a realistic scenario, you're gonna find at least some type of imperfection on your copy. Imperfections come from a variety of sources, but the most common come from other humans in its previous ownership, the environment around its previous home, or the damage done during the shipping process to you. It's really a case-by-case basis as to how damaged the game is, and until the game falls into your hands, the amount of damage done to it is out of your hands. Regardless of the scale of these damages, it leaves me baffled that games are much more fragile than you or I might expect. These are things handled by kids, you'd think they'd be sturdier. But just because other humans might treat their games irresponsibly doesn't mean you're immune from causing damages too, even if by accident. We're not perfect after all. Sometimes these wounds show up one day without explanation, like what happened to my copy of Mario and Sonic at the 2012 London Olympic Games. One day I saw it with this gash on this spot. I don't know how it happened, but I think this recycling insignia on the inside of the case might be the culprit. Other times we're just not careful for some reason. For example, this is my copy of Tales of Xillia that I bought from eBay. It looks good, but then you look in the upper right corner and realize there's a little dent on the artwork. I'll explain how this dent got here later, but I will tell you, I was careless. Used games in this level may also be missing some components, so to remain in this level, it all depends on what components are missing. If the game came in a cardboard sleeve to keep goodies and said goodies might be lost, it is very common for those to be missing, as most people don't have the foresight to consider that this may be a collector's item. I've had instances where the manual is missing, which I believe is another common component to lose. This is especially true in earlier console generations where as kids we might not see the value in the manual.
We have games to play! Who has time to read the manual? Reading is for suckers!
Take my copy of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for example. I owned it since launch and then one day, boom, the manual is missing for some unknown reason. That said, it might not be too bad for most people. After all, the case is merely a shell that contains the actual storage of the game, the disc or cart. As long as those are present, you can still play those games even if the case is slightly damaged. Same deal for the cartridges. The outer shell is just that, the outer shell that houses the game inside. As long as you don't do anything to the label, you can scribble as much as you want on the outer shell. It's not going to affect the stuff inside as long as the cartridge contacts are clean.
So it's a bit damaged, but it's not like it could get any worse, right?
Barf into the nearest bucket because let me introduce you to level 3, the crime scene. Take everything I said about level 2 and take it to the extremes. Like seriously, what the hell happened here? These are used games that are begging to be put out of their misery, and people sell games in this state. Who would buy these? It's true, the disc inside is where the game is, and cartridge games will work as long as the contacts are clean, but with damages to the outer stuff like this, how is the game even working at all if it's not that protected? The case is broken in many places, the artwork is torn in places, the manual is crumpled somehow, the disc isn't even the right type of case, stickers and markers where it shouldn't be. This is nauseating! Like, who hurt the previous owner to leave the game in this state? Again, it makes me surprised that games aren't sturdier than they should considering they're typically handled by kids and even pets might attack them indiscriminately. Games in this level are also somehow missing the artwork in the original case, and that just makes me ask, how? I'd understand if the whole case was missing and you just had the disc, but how do you accidentally lose just the artwork? That's held by the plastic of the case. It's not like it's at risk of flying out every time you open the case. Seriously, removing the artwork would have to be a deliberate choice on your part, and even then, what is the end goal of doing that? Does removing that thin layer of paper really save that much space?
There we go. I had just cleared some nanometers of shelf space.
It'd be even more bizarre if all the original components are there, but in the wrong case. Like this copy of Kirby's Epic Yarn I got in GameStop in 2018. It has the disc, the manual, and the original artwork, but it's in the DVD case. That's also broken. How do you lose the case but manage to keep everything else? Seeing all of this, it makes me question what humans are doing to these games. Fortunately, if your used game is level 2 or 3, there are ways to fix this. Got any dirty components or stickers that need removing? Fortunately, household tools might do the job. Sanitation wipes and Goo Gone are your best friend. Take those and get to work and you can clean that thing up in no time. If you know what you're doing, cleaning should come smoothly and not be like what I accidentally did to this copy of Tales of Xillia. Peeling off stickers is also something you can do if you don't want the blocking portions of the artwork, and the activity can feel so therapeutic at times.
And with this, all my stresses are going away.
Sometimes you just get one that comes off smoothly, while others are just so stubborn and have the potential to leave some sticker residue behind. It's Goo Gone to the rescue if that's the case. Just remember to remove the artwork beforehand so it doesn't get on the art. This is also so you don't accidentally damage it, like I did with this copy of Tales of Xillia. This is what I get for trying to dig out the stickers with my hands. It doesn't end well. I blame these inner holes. Got any missing or heavily damaged components? Well, thanks to the internet, you can easily buy those from people who somehow have these things. You can easily find empty cases online, and if you're lucky, it's possible to get one with the original artwork and manual. This is handy if you find yourself with just the disc of a specific game, and you're missing the case and manual. These empty cases come from the type of people who rather store their disc in a CD binder or spindle. Some might look at them funny for storing discs like this, but they did do the charitable work for those who want the original case, artwork, and manual. Missing artwork but feeling cheap and you got a good printer? Well, you can print off artwork that you found on the internet and replace them that way. It's still not ideal. I'd prefer if you just get the original artwork, as the quality of the cover online isn't exactly the same as the original, and some covers do have quirks that you just can't replicate with a printer. America's Next Top Model on the Wii has a glittery section that is actually textured, and it's pretty fun to feel. Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum all have this shiny section that likely requires special paper to achieve this effect. Still, if printing your own covers are your only option, there are worse ways out there. Drawing your own cover is always a fun time, like these covers I found on the shelves of the same GameStop I go to. I like these covers because at least the artists behind them put their own spin on them. Of course, the laziest way is to just take whatever pops up on Google first, not even researching to make sure it's the correct cover or it's even of decent quality. Another popular method of replacing the case is to buy a game from the bargain bin and harvest their cases for your more valuable games. Those bargain bin games are there just to die. Why not put them out of their misery and put their cases to better use? I personally don't do this because I care about game preservation, even the bad ones, but for those who don't care, go nuts. Either way, boom, you just fixed your used game and it looks almost new. But talking about these remedies just leads me to ask, what is going on with the seller you bought these from?
I just want to talk to someone about what's going on with this!
It's one thing if it came directly from the previous owner, as whatever state it was left in is immediately your problem once it's in your hands. But it's another thing when a middleman is involved. If you bought the game online, it has to go through a delivery network, so whatever happens during that time is out of both parties' hands. But if you bought it at a brick and mortar store, the condition of the game is the worker's problem until someone picks it up. Okay, it's not really their problem, it's just their responsibility to take the game and sell them to the next person, so I don't blame them for simply taking the games as is. But like I said earlier, for the game to work in their respective system, the parts the console reads needs to be clean. The casing that houses the readable parts, they matter less in comparison. Fortunately, most retro game stores do test the games that come in at some point just to see if they work and can be sold. Meanwhile at GameStop, if the disc looks like it could work, they'll take it. Now, whether or not it'll actually work is another thing entirely, and GameStop doesn't have the means to test every game that comes in. Buying used games from GameStop has a risk, as if they went untested, there is a good chance it probably won't work. How do I know this? I remember buying Guilty Gear XX Accent Core on the Wii back in around 2011, and no matter what I tried, my Wii couldn't read the disc, even though it looked clean. Again, this is why people test their games before selling. Of course, because used games are games removed from the shrink wrap, the stores tend to take countermeasures to potential theft. What they usually do is remove the disc from the case, put it in a sleeve, store it in a separate cabinet, and display the empty case on the shelf. Both retro game stores and GameStop do this for their used games, and it's not too bad of an anti-theft measure. However, I have heard stories of GameStop employees taking this measure to extremes and applying it to new games as well, including removing the shrink wrap. I don't know, maybe that sounds plausible years ago, but is it believable today? Again, it's certainly plausible, but it's more likely that they take an empty case to display on the shelf for the customer to ring up, and the new copies are in a separate cabinet for employees to hand to the customer when the time comes to purchase.
I will never understand any type of retail jobs.
But regardless, the game is now in the store's possession. Now it's time to use their favorite tool to display the prices, stickers! Now this is unavoidable because the stores have to find a way to display the price, so it is a necessary evil, but that doesn't change the fact that they could be at the worst at times. It goes without saying, but plastic surfaces are objectively the only acceptable place where you should place the stickers. Seriously, if you run a game store and you place it on anything not plastic, be prepared for an angry mob outside of your home. Sticking them on the labels, I don't get the logic here, especially on disc-based games. Was the goal here to prevent people from swapping the artwork and hope for an employee that doesn't give a shit to not check for any artwork and sticker mismatches? Seriously, don't even try that, they'll figure it out. It's also a bit of a heart attack if you see stickers on the spine. Like you go, what is your problem? And then you open it and you see it's not actually a sticker but a label slipped on there.
Like I said, stickers are pretty much needed to display the price. As long as not put in any offensive spots, they're not too terrible to put up with and remove if needed.
Like I said earlier, the disc is what the console reads. That is the part the store cares about. But having them in their original case with the original inserts is always nice. But what if you give them the disc and just the disc and nothing else? They go into the generic game case. Typically seen in GameStop, these are for the more extreme cases where the disc is the only thing they are given. Or maybe they threw away the original case, who knows. The point is, they are put in these sad excuses of cases with the most generic art possible. All you see here in these cases are the title and some minimalist graphic design. Usually they just use your run-of-the-mill DVD case, so a GameCube disc in a slot that's made for normal-sized discs feels really weird. But for most systems, their game cases are the same size as a normal DVD case, so for the most part, they look natural. Though GameStop tends to stick to the black color, so they typically don't get cases that are Xbox green or Wii white. It does happen, but not that often. Also, most DVD cases are made with only one disc in mind, so if you run into multi-disc games, then the two discs are just awkwardly stacked on top of each other. But what weirds me out is what they do in cases like PS3, PS4, Switch, and 3DS cases that don't use typical DVD cases. Now granted, those cases are possible to buy somewhere, so it's possible that they had some at hand. Or some lunatic somehow lost the artwork and the employees had to go all, oh quick, print out the generic art! But then we have games inside cases similar to the real thing. These are the laziest knockoff cases out there. Like you decided to make a case with the same dimensions as a normal PS4 case and thought it was good enough?
Don't you know I need Tales of Berseria to be housed in this size of case? Putting it in a DVD case is just disrespectful!
Eventually, however, getting the game used will become the only way you're gonna get certain games at all. That's just the way life goes, and prices will change as time goes on. Some games become cheaper than its original release, while others become significantly more expensive.
You won't feel regret either way.
You could also wait for a pre-owned copy of a game that released a month ago and save about $5. Yeah, you're not really saving money that way, just buy it new at that point. Still, there is some sort of camaraderie when it comes to buying used games from your fellow gamer, as you get the game while the seller gets your money for whatever they need. In a way, both parties are helping each other out in this exchange and could possibly lead to some neat interactions.
This game is the reason I have a friend now.
Publishers, however, really hate it when their games are bought used, and it's not hard to see why. When buying games new, the store has to cut a part of the money gained from that purchase so that it goes to the publishers. Used games, however, are great because the store gets all the money from that purchase. Of course, that doesn't stop publishers from trying to profit from all game sales, new or used. Sometimes if you buy a game used, there are consequences. You can especially see this with cartridge games where the data is saved in the cartridge itself. But some will go as far as to give you absolutely no way to completely wipe the game of all saved data. Pokemon Ranger on DS, however, takes this further. The game offers you a Manaphy egg to transfer to your Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum games, which is great, except for the fact that the egg is one per cartridge, meaning that if you bought the game used, there is a good chance that the egg might have already been redeemed. And I'm sure there are DS and 3DS games that might have done something similar, but with the rise of stores like GameStop and the internet getting more popular, publishers would need to find a way to make sure that all game sales, new or used, would net them a profit. Of course, doing that would require one to go to extremes.
So naturally, they went to extremes.
In the 7th generation of consoles late 2009, online passes were introduced, which EA fittingly named their version Project $10. New copies of games, usually by EA in this era, contain a code for you to input to access some content. If you bought the game used, it's likely that the code is either lost or already redeemed. If that's the case, you have to pay $10 to be able to access it yourself. It started off as bonus content, but the codes were later used to hold the right to play online for ransom. No code, no way to play the game online. Xbox 360 owners, however, are doubly screwed here because that is in addition to whatever you paid for an Xbox Live Gold subscription to even play any online supported game at all. These thankfully died out at around 2013, with EA retroactively updating their games to remove online pass requirements and Sony going as far as creating a policy forbidding this. But this just goes to show that companies would do anything to make a profit off of their games, new and used, and they are continuing to do so. The online passes may have died, but the effects still linger, especially with the industry's push to embrace digital format more than ever. To be fair, producing physical copies can get expensive, so I can't fully blame some publishers for going digital only on some games. It might be the most viable option to make a decent amount of money, especially the more niche it is. Fuga Melodies of Steel 1 and 2 are both digital only because it comes from the Little Tail Bronx franchise, a franchise you definitely haven't heard of and has historically been a commercial failure but only kept alive because the developers love it that much. 4 big examples that come to mind are all from the 3DS era, all American releases of certain Japanese-made games. Dillon's Dead Heat Breakers, Rhythm Heaven Megamix, and the 2 3DS Ace Attorney games, Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice. All of these are examples of games that publishers fear do not have a large enough audience to warrant a physical release, so digital only might yield some profit. Of course, once the online stores that hosted them do eventually shut down, that leaves them no way to legally obtain them. Which is why the Apollo Justice Ace Attorney trilogy getting a physical release is a blessing because it allowed the English versions of the 2 3DS Ace Attorney games to be preserved. That said, I will never understand why some digital games opt to print out a physical copy only to have a digital code inside and nothing else. Like, why print out a case if you're only going to put paper with a code inside? What is this slot even for at that point? We also live in an age where games get online updates, meaning whatever you get on the cart or disc might not be current, and if your system doesn't have internet connection, you're stuck with what's in the disc. Oh, you want to use the Mint Decapitator in Splatoon 3? Better connect to the internet and update because it's not in the cart. This can be especially bad if the game is designed to have updates over time. The live service model really does a good job of making sure that used copies just become landfill once the server's shut down and you can't play it anymore, especially if said online content is the only thing there is. At least Splatoon 1 has a story mode that you could play through even though the online play got shut down in 2024, so it's not totally useless. The Switch Mario Sports games and Nintendo Switch Sports are sparse in content when they first launch, but hey, at least it's still possible to do things offline. Meanwhile, Concord merely 11 days after launch. But it's not just publishers trying to mitigate the money lost from a used game sale. Console companies are trying to do this too. The Xbox One was originally not going to support used games, only to back off on that once people justifiably gave them hell over it, and Sony roasted them pretty badly over it. The thing is, even though they went back on their word on it, it eventually got to the point where buying physical games for the Xbox One wasn't that lucrative. Xbox Game Pass was introduced in 2017, a subscription service that allows you access to a rotating list of games. One fee per month grants you access to all of these games. With a perk like that, what reason is there allowed to get physical games for the Xbox One?
Well, for one, you can sniff your physical games.
And Microsoft started realizing this as in 2019 they released the Xbox One S All Digital Edition and the Xbox One S with a disc drive removed and $50 cheaper. Now, Sony did try a digital-only console 10 years ago with the PSP Go, but the Xbox One S All Digital Edition really set the stage for the future. Sure, GameStop refused to sell these because why would they when their revenue comes mostly from used games? And sure, console companies still allow the printing of physical games, but the following generation started to push digital game purchases more and more. When the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 launched, they actually had versions of them that are digital only. There's the Xbox Series S that's less powerful than the Series X, and the PS5 Digital Edition that kinda looks like it was designed first and the disc drive was just an afterthought. The fact that the disc drive versions are also available shows that maybe they're not ready to stop distributing physical media just yet, but it seems to be doing that less as the generation goes on. Sure, when the PS5 Slim came out with the disc and digital edition, at least it had the option to buy a separate disc drive for the digital edition in case you decide to back up going digital only. But leave it to the PS5 Pro to not have a disc drive at all and basically forcing you to buy it separately. At that point, I just settled for a PS5 not Pro with a built-in disc drive. At least the Xbox Series X did the less stupid option and repeated the Xbox One S All Digital Edition, releasing a digital-only version of the Series X for those who want disc-free gaming with the Series X's power. But regardless, with the way the industry is going now, it's possible that physical games might disappear in the future and we'll likely only see them in the retro era. A world without physical games and used game sales scares me a little, but the world continues to move forward. We'll just have to see how things play out in the future.
Digital is the way of the future. That's just the direction the industry is headed. I can understand why they think it's appealing. They don't have to spend money printing physical copies, and they make the maximum amount of money possible for a single sale. However, I will always appreciate the physical copies, not because it gives you the feeling of actually owning them, but used games being swapped around does have some of the community aspect to it. True, the whole content may be gross at times, but it's a part of the gaming culture. Of course, if you are a PC gamer and you do all your gaming on Steam, I apologize for wasting at least 22 minutes of your time on something that doesn't even matter to you. Man, why am I so itchy right now? I swear, I thought I cleaned everything around here. Oh, there's something in the back of my pants! Oh god. Well, it's not like it's gonna give me any diseases, right? Just because I touched it for so long and sat on it for so long. I'm fine, right?
One internet search for medical answers later.
The game gave me a yeast infection on my buttocks.